Hello world. So as you can tell by the title, this is going to be a little tutorial that I'm going to set up for prop animation, which is basically how you would, or one way to go about constraining a prop to a character's hand, in which in this tutorial, this is just a generic prop where the hand is going to be controlling the prop. And I'm going to show you my setup that I use for constraining the objects, which also then allows you to animate the prop within the hand for uh, how whatever your animation is going to be. You might also want to move the prop, like if they were holding like a beaker or something. Uh, whenever the hand swings, you might want the beaker to move a little bit as well for overlap or whatever. So I've had a lot of people asking in classes and whatnot. They were struggling with how to move objects with characters' hands, like props or anything, because they've never been shown before. Um, and most people will just initially parent an object to the character's hand if they've never done it before. And the reason that that doesn't work is it works as a bare minimum. However, you have no control over the object within the character's hand, and the object is literally stuck in one point wherever you parented the object. And you can't move the object away from that or anything. So normally the industry kind of way of doing it is you parent constrain an object to the character's hand if that's the goal, or if that's how the prop is being held. And this is one, there's many other ways of doing it, but I found that this is quote unquote my way of doing it, that I find is just simple, straightforward, and really simple to use and set up so that you can do whatever kind of animation you need to. So in this tutorial, once again, I'm just showing you how you might set up an object like this sword or that ball over there, how you might put that into the character's hand to use. So first I'll start with the sword. This is a prop that already has a controller, the one that's on the handle here that I've got selected. So if you are using a prop, let's say you're working on a short that already has a controller, you would want to use that controller instead of the method that I'll show you for the sphere in a second. So here we've got the sword, and I've already wrapped his fingers around it, and obviously the sword is going to be held in the hand, like I've got it right here. So the way that you do that, well, the way that some people typically will do it is they'll just grab the hand and then, shift select the controller and then go to, parent constrain it. However, the reason that I don't normally do this specifically is it works in general kind of like parenting, where I can set a key on both the hand and the sword. Move it. Oh, well, let me just move the hand here. Move it up, and I'll set the key there. Oops. Alright, so now, set it on 1. So here you can see, I guess I should put that back. So here the hand is moving between the two. Now let's say as I do that, we want the sword to overlap and trail a little bit. So set a key on 1, and then if we go to 9, well, in this case it stays behind because I've parented straight to the object, and now the object is acting separately from the hand and doesn't work. If I go back to 1, it snaps, and then bam. So now the two objects aren't constrained anymore. So let me show you now, undo everything that I've been doing. Let me show you the way that I normally will set up the constraints and why you don't just want to immediately take the controller of the prop and immediately constrain it to the hand controller that's going to be controlling it. Let me undo just so that I don't have the parent constraint anymore. Okay. Alright, I've undone a lot. So here, sword is not constrained. So the way that I will typically do it is I will select the controller, and then I'm going to open up my outliner now, just so that you can see this. And I'm going to find the sword. And you want to go to wherever the controller is. Alright. And in this case, you could constrain to this group, but what I normally will do is above the props controller, I will just make a new group. So now I have this group 100 as it's called in here because there's other groups in the outliner. But this is basically just a zero group. And now, instead of constraining the prop to the hand, I'm going to constrain this group to the hand. So as you normally would, select the master, and then for the servant, select that group, and now parent constrain them. So as you can see, the group is now constrained, but the controller for the prop is not. And the reason that you would do this is because now you can animate the prop separately from the hand while the prop is still following the hand. And what I mean by that is, let's just take both of these, and I'm going to set two keys. Set one on 1 and 8. So on 8 right here, I'm going to move the hand, and the sword comes with it. And now I can animate the sword as well. So if I go between the keys, you can see I can now animate the sword independently of the hand while it's following. And this is a much easier and more robust way of setting up a parent constraint for a general controller like this, because it does, once again, allow you to animate the prop with the hand on its own. But let me show you how to set this same setup up for an object that you might have that's just geometry and it doesn't actually have any controllers or anything. And that's where we get this little sphere. So the way that I will normally do that same exact kind of setup for an object that has no controllers is I'll first create a locator. And then I will position that locator in the direct, as close to the center or whatever you can for that ball. So here I'm just going to rename this ball. And I just like to rename everything just out of habit in a scene. So we've got this ball locator. All right. Now, basically, this locator is going to act as the controller for the ball because it doesn't have one. So you can do it this way. Like, if it's just going to act as a controller, you can just select the 2, and then you can just parent the ball to the controller. So now, so now whatever you do to the controller, we'll do to the ball. And if you rotate it, so voila, now my ball's got a controller. Now what I'll do if I want to constrain it to this hand right here, I will do the group method once again. So I'll create a group above the controller. So I'll just select the ball locator and group it. So I'm going to call this ball group. And now that group is independent of the locator. So what I can do is move the group. Oops, let me modify the center pivot. All right, so now I'm going to move the group to the hand like this. Just really quick, I'm not going to move the fingers on this one. So now let's just say that's where I'm going to put the ball for the initial pose for where he's going to be holding it. So once again, instead of using this locator in order to be able to animate the ball independently, I'm going to use the group. So once again, you select the master, select the servant, and then you're going to parent constrain. And as you can see, constraint worked, constraint is on. And now you can move the hand and the ball and the locator will follow. And if I illustrate the other point once again, that I can animate the ball independently, I'm going to set 2 more keys on 1 and 8 on both the ball and the locator, or I mean the locator and the hand. And on frame 8, I'm going to move the hand and the ball. So now the ball is kind of rolling out of his hand for whatever reason. And if I go between the 2 keys, you can see that the ball is animating on its own, but is still following the hand because it's constrained there. And this is just a generic, really easy setup that I'd normally use for putting props into a character's hand, both for props like the sword over here that have a controller already built in, or an object like this that's just in a scene and I need to make a controller, aka the locator for it. Just to recap really quickly, you always want to have a group above the controller that you're constraining to the hand. So always, just out of habit, create what I call the 0 group, which is going to be your constraint group. and then that is going to be the servant to your hand. So you're going to have the hand controller, and then you're going to parent constrain whatever the controller for the prop is, the group above it. And trying to make this as clear as possible, and I feel like I keep convoluting it. So take the controller for the prop, make a group above it, and then parent constrain that group to the hand in order to be able to animate the hand and then the ball or the prop, whatever it is, inside of the hand independently.